Ridiculous. Like you ain't got no time. I put that one on sideways. You got the only one that's ever been like that. yeah, the sticker on the table. I'm fix that one. I ain't doing nothing half-ass. What the hell am I doing? I'm thinking about a flute call.
I met Tim Grounds somewhere in the mid-90s. I'm 93, 94. In Central City, Kentucky at our Kentucky Deer Classic that we had. Uncle Lee's put this event on and I was there, you know, just a kid walking around looking. And I had grew up hunting in Henderson Bottoms, and down there it was a Hess call, a Drury call, or a Night and Hell call, you know, and it was a short call. You didn't see any flute calls. So I met Tim at the Deer Classic. He had a booth set up and he was pushing these flute calls that he had, and that's the first time I can ever remember seeing one, but I was literally amazed at how awesome that call sounded and how awesome Tim sounded and how many geese I'd never heard anybody sound like that on a goose call in my life. He was amazing, and you were just drawn to that. And I remember buying that call. I think I give $30 for the call. And he worked with me trying to get me to just make a cluck on this call, and I sounded like somebody with a party horn. I mean, it was horrible. I mean, it was horrible. And I remember leaving there thinking, I am never gonna get this down. So I took the whole year and I worked and worked and worked, and I ended up going to the Kentucky State Goose and Duck Calling Contest down in Hickman with some friends of mine, and they ended up signing me into the goose calling. There was only 3 guys in it, and it was Carl Lossman, David Renfro, Snurd, and myself. And I can't remember which one of them did it, but one of them guys blew the light. I think it was Lossman, blew the light and put me into second place. If he would have not done that, I would have got third place, because I was horrible. I mean, it was horrible. But what it done is it drove me up. I wanted to become the best I could be, and I wanted to be on that stage, man. It gave me the drive to want to call and be a contest caller. I remember working that whole year. Man, I know I drove my parents crazy. I drove everybody around me crazy. I was taking this call to work with us. On breaks and on lunch, I was outside blowing a goose call. I continuously had it around my neck. And I remember going to the World Open in Marion, John A. Logan College. I got into the novice contest. There was 20, 25 guys in this contest, and I got third place. And Grounds was sitting on the front row of this contest, and he run up on the stage after it was over, and he remembered me from the Deer Classic. And he was like, man, you have come a long way in a year, because I remember you couldn't even make a sound on this call, and now you've done got third in this novice contest, and there was some good callers in that contest. And it was just the passion that was burning in me to be the best I could be on a goose call. And thanks to Tim and his patience, man, it worked out, and it's been a great ride.
Growing up with Dad, it was a lifestyle, because I didn't have any choice. You know, he used to blow a goose call against her belly, you know, whenever she was pregnant with me, and so I didn't have much choice but to come out honking and quacking. But it was more or less, I really don't have a lot of when I first started, as far as like remembering, you know, the first cluck or the first honk, but there was it was kind of just, I guess over time, just come about it. I don't know really, like I said, the first time I did the honk or the cluck, but, you know, or something like that on a goose call period. But I know there was always, you know, a lot of guys around the house, and just over time, just picking up little things here and there, and just seeing how they did it and how he did it. and just watching a lot, you know, and when it comes to, you know, the calling side of it. But he was always generous to, you know, to help anybody, not just me. But as far as on a goose call, it didn't matter how long it took. He always took time, especially with kids. And I know that, you know, it's been several years since, you know, I've been that young, but you know, everybody's grown up and stuff. But I know that he took a lot of time with a lot of great callers, made a lot of great callers, and he definitely, I got to owe a lot to him for my success. But a lot of there was always people around the house, though, you know, blowing goose calls constantly, and I'd sit over there and just watch, you know, and I just kind of let it soak all in, and you know, certain notes or certain way of positioning your hands, or it was more in the flute days back then, you know, the guide's best and you know, the Eastern Shoremen and all that stuff. But I kind of was really getting involved and getting into it when it just was starting to transition, you know, like around the late 90s. That was, you know, put me around 10 or 12 years old. But then it transitioned from the flute style call to the short reed, and that's kind of where I really took off. And I didn't take off there for several years because there was just so many people, and I didn't have the lung capacity. But Dad kept telling me, he said, hey, you got to win, you got to lose to win. He said, you've got to put your time in. He said, just keep your head on strong and keep your head up, and you got to learn to lose before you can win, you know. And that's probably one of the best lessons learned that you know, he taught me. And you know, don't get down. And you know, I used to get down there for a little bit, and you know, and just wonder why, you know. But he never would say, well, you just did awesome, you did awesome. He'd always tell me what I needed to improve on, and that's the only way you are going to improve, by, you know, fail, and then, you know, being taught how you failed to change it and to better yourself up in the next one.
Tim was always the life of the party. I mean, anywhere he was at, it could be a dull room, and when he walked in, within 30 seconds, he had everybody in stitches. I mean, one of the funniest people I've ever been around. Man, the stories, I could go on for days telling stories that I've heard or I've witnessed on Tim, and just, man, the guy was just hilarious. And he wasn't afraid to do anything. That's one thing about it. He was not afraid to do anything.
You know, there's so many different memories I've got, funny memories, good memories, but there's one in particular. One day we was hunting down at our farm, and he was always into gambling. You know, he liked to play the slot machines. He liked to go to, like, when he was in Vegas, he'd go to and gamble, and he would always, if he was into something and somebody wanted to bet him, he'd be all for it. And he would go as high as you wanted to go, for as long as you wanted to bet. And he made a bet with this guy. One day we was down on our farm, and he was hunting. He said there was a certain amount of geese. If we don't kill this many, he said, we're gonna kill 20. Well, this guy said, I bet we don't kill 20. And I don't know if it was that number, but he said, if we don't kill that many, he said, I'll ride around this farm naked on that four-wheeler. And it was like single digits. Well, we didn't. We didn't. And he was a man of his word, and he was, you know, that's one thing that he was for sure. If he told you something, you could take it to the bank. And we was like one or two shy, just almost, you know, almost killed that many. And we got up there to the clubhouse after we got done, and that guy said, well, he said, looks like you're riding around the farm, ain't you? He got on that four-wheeler and he rode around that 40 acres. And he got back and he was cold, buddy. And we laughed. I mean, there was a bunch of us up there on the, you know, in the clubhouse. And that was just come out of just a thought. I mean, just what was one of the funniest moments. That's one of the ones that come to my mind the quickest. And it was funny. It was by far one of the best things I've seen him do in my 32 years. When I messed up, it was never real good, and I've messed up a bunch. There's been times that I've messed up worse than others, but it was always a pretty hot reaction, fiery. It wasn't a calm, learn your lesson or your ground. I mean, it was a good ass eating. And I mean, that's the only way I can explain it. And I've had a bunch of them. And I'd give anything to have another one of those, just one more, but it was more times than not, it was more that was just the way his personality was. I mean, he was 100 mile an hour all the time, and that was just his way of teaching. And I mean, I feel like there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's different. That's what makes this world go around, and that's if everybody was the same, it'd be a boring world. So it's just his way of teaching. I mean, he just, he had a lot of drive to him, and then in that sense, it made him react to things, pretty fiery. And I had a lot of fiery lessons, learned, but it was all good.
We got such good reviews off that first video we did, the history of the half-breed, that I wanted to go back and actually film some short videos of other calls that he had in the line. So we did a flute call video, and then I went back later. He had called, he's like, man, I got a new half-breed out. It's called the hybrid. Now, I'm a half-breed fan. I've always got one with me. To me, it's the 870 of goose calls. I mean, it is one of the, if not the best killing call I've ever had. It's something about that way, the high pitch and the way that call sounds. Geese just love the half-breed. So he was telling me about this new one he had designed called the hybrid. He was excited about it and wanted to get some footage of it, and little did I know that would be the last footage I would be able to grab with Tim. But I'm so glad that we were able to capture this.
When Dad stumbled across the half-breed hybrid, it was kind of a weird way that he did it. He was wanting to kind of make a new version of the half-breed, which this one here has O-rings. It's acrylic, and it's a little bit longer, and it's super loud, not quite as high pitched as the original half-breed that he came out with in 1989, but he changed the inside of it. On the inside, it's a little bit more open, more wide. It's actually not quite as constricted, I should say, but it's I can't hardly just sit there beside him and he'd be tuning them things, and I'd say, man, he said, what are you doing? I said, well, let me blow it in your ear. And he said, well, you just never do. I said, what? That thing's loud, man. And he'd say something and just mumble, and we'd laugh about it after a little bit, and and I'd say, well, here, hang on a minute. And I'd go out and I'd go out in the garage, and he said, wait, that thing is, I said, this was the prototype, and he said, I think we're going to do this. So it turned out pretty good.
Hey folks, I want to tell you a little bit about the half-breed. We're not going to get into the history. It's going to be short and sweet. We got three different kinds of half-breed. We got the original half-breed. We've got the half-breed D, which has triple crown guts in it. Then we've got the brand new half-breed hybrid. And what makes it a hybrid, your finger goes all the way in like a cylinder bore, versus on the half-breed or the half-breed D, you don't go very far, it's just a little flare. And the mouthpiece can go down farther. We put a stop in it. We put O-rings on it, we put a stop right here. So if you want the call all the way down, which I like it, or you can back it up and get a little farther away from the reed and be a little easier to operate, but it's ear piercing on migrators and traffic geese. But I'm gonna blow all three of them for you. If you've got any questions, you catch me at the shop, 618-983-5649, or www.timgrounds.com, or tim@timgrounds.com is the email. But here's the original half-breed. Been gone forever, and I don't know how many geese it's killed, but it's a traffic killing machine. Now, some guys didn't like that high ping, so what we did, we put the TC guts in the D's. We call this the half-breed D. Them sell for 100. These sell for 50 and 55. Then we got the new one, just this year, the half-breed hybrid. Like I said, cylinder bore, mouthpiece. You talk about ear ringer. Check the migrating geese are gonna love these. Just remember this, you notice my hands are not going like I'm getting stung by yellow jackets, all right? Hand control, air control. Take it to the bank.
Tim is definitely going to be missed by many. I know for me, it's not the same now when I go to contests or if I go to waterfowl shows, or we go to the shows that he always liked to go to and not see him there. It's a big change for sure. And I don't think I'll go through another waterfowl season without thinking of Tim when I see the first bunch of migrators come south, or we get the first bunch of geese bellied up into decoys. You can bet Tim will be on my mind.
This. You notice my hands are not going like I'm getting stung by yellow jackets, all right? Hand control, air control. Take it to the bank.